So, about that 2-day death cross.
Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let.
Well, welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is a nice little Friday morning over here from a Helsinki, Finland that is covered in rain, but also now kind of shining the sun outside, which is very, very confusing to get the day started. But I got a very good night of sleep last night, so I am ready to fucking go, ready to look at some Magic Internet money, and ready to look at some good old technical analysis, of which we had a very phenomenal move last night, kind of playing out exactly what we were speaking about with that quick move up to 7,300, followed by a quick rejection, and coming back down to critical level. What could that mean? Well, we'll be getting that relatively soon. Anyways, we'll be doing Twitch again today. I've been having a phenomenally amazing time doing that, and the people coming out have been just fucking phenomenal. It has been so much fucking fun, and I'm really looking forward to doing it again. Maybe going for even a new record. We didn't get the record or we did get a new record yesterday, but we didn't get 8 hours, just 7.5 hours, which is pretty damn good to begin with. But today I'm determined at least 8 hours, so I'm getting started early. It's already 8:40 a.m. in Helsinki right now, so if I get this video out and done within the next hour or so, then eat some food, I think we might be getting started. Just enough time to meet a new all-time record. Anyways, with all of that said, we have a lot to talk about on good old price action right now. I feel like there's something else that I'm missing. Maybe not. I don't know. Whatever. What do people typically say on their YouTube videos? If you like this content... No. What do they typically say? They typically say... And before we get into this, you better like and subscribe or die. It's like, what the fuck? All right, well, I'll never tell you that, except I just kind of did. But more importantly, I never want to be that person. Anyways, I think that's about it on my side. Looking at the Krown trading application right here, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net, we see a couple of very interesting things now, don't we? First and foremost, well, not necessarily foremost, but more or less the Bitcoin dominance has been steady again today. We will actually look into that, assuming that we actually have enough time. These videos just tend to just drone on, which I really do apologize about, but I do feel like a lot needs to be said because we have very unique and nuanced situations, which we covered yesterday, which I feel pretty damn good about. Anyways, it doesn't matter if I feel good about it. It feels good. The only thing that matters is trading it. And yes, I did short the 7,300-ish level, and I am holding that for now as long as we are below the next critical level, which we'll get into in just a second here. Anyways, more importantly, and what should be first and foremost, is the open interest once again leading the way as Bitcoin shot up to 7,300 yesterday, to the fucking decimal, actually, I believe it was. And what do we see? Open interest coming down. Now, between yesterday's video and today, we actually saw open interest go up to 650 million. As you can see right here, as you don't see right here, because we don't have the chart ready just yet, although it will be coming as soon as possible, but soon as possible can always be, maybe like a week away, 2 weeks away, whatever it ends up being. We're working on it. Anyways, on top of that, now open interest coming down about a little bit more than 50 million from yesterday to today after hitting that 7,300-ish peak. That is indicative of, once again, distribution. And I do believe that that's going to really tie into the analysis today very, 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 very well. So with all that said, let's get into the actual price analysis right here. Let's see, make sure that my charts are looking nice and spiffy. Okay, it looks like so. Looks like one of my cameras is running out of battery. I need to get a dummy battery for that. If you know where to get one, please let me know, because I don't, and apparently you can't get them in fucking Finland. Anyways, you can't get anything right now. Anyways, man, nothing's coming in, nothing's going out. We are on lockdown. It's quarantine time, baby, but it doesn't matter because we got each other. Anyways, and there's your positive message for the day. Anyways, back on to Bitcoin. Let's actually start this off on the 2-day. This is the big chart that we were following yesterday. We did say that it was we didn't say that it was likely to move up to 7,300. We just said that if we get that next closure above 6,800, which we actually saw on Twitch live yesterday, right here, this is actually about when we left off too, then we were likely to get continuation of 7,300 region. We got that tick. Actually, on Stamp, a little bit lower than that, 72.39, and on BitMexico, I think we got exactly to the decimal, yes, 72.99, and on GDEX, we see 72.92. So yeah, about 7,300-ish region, which is better shown by this blue box territory right around here, the exact same one that we had going on yesterday. And what did I say after that? If you see a quick rejection based off of that, which is also going to tie into our higher term time frame analysis, which we end the next 4-hour dildo, at the very least the next 4-hour dildo, back below, especially 6,800 6,800 or even 6,700 or 6,750, more obviously speaking, which we haven't done just yet, actually, to be fair. Then, well, what are we looking at? We're looking at a goddamn rejection. And what do you know? We see volume is tailing off the whole way throughout this nice little formation right here, which I'll put back on the rising channel. I think it's better seen on maybe like a 2 hour, something like this. Looks to be a little more accurate. Or why does this keep on? I keep on shuffling around the time frames, but regardless, it's more or less the same. And what do you know? After rejecting from this blue box territory, we do see a nice spike in volume coming in right in over here, which is indicative that we are still playing off this redistributive pattern, which I do believe still lays out the overall bias on the medium and higher time frames, as I've been saying, that I am still bearishly biased again as long as we are below, especially 7,300-ish region from a higher time frame closing basis. Higher time frame meaning no less than a 12-hour, and realistically even a daily is probably where I'd kind of make that mark. And Bitcoin getting rejected from that region not only was a nice blue box from a historical level going all the way back to 2018 or even more recently, like 2019. But if we go over to the 2-day, as we've been putting a major focus on, that is exactly where the 2-day dildo death cross was coming in and testing around the yellow 21 exponential moving average. So I really like this read, and more importantly, the 2 day is going to be closing today. And if it closes anything resembling this, anything under 6,800, I would say that that's going to be a confirmed rejection. We have the death cross right there between the green and the purple, 55 and 200, the 21 exponential moving average, and more importantly, even the 377, both providing the impetus for rejection. Boston Algo selling that area as everyone gets really bullish, talking about 8,000 Bitcoins going to the moon. The Fed's printing money, and that's bullish for Bitcoin. Trump's buying fucking Bitcoin, and that means that you just got April Fools, motherfucker. Anyways, as always, the crypto sphere never fails to disappoint with absolutely unrealistic expectations from very little actual differences in price action. A sombering thought indeed. Anyways, I don't mean to get on my fucking high horse right now. I apologize about that. Feel free to call me out on my arrogance. You are more than welcome to. I actually really think that that's important, an important part of this community. Anyways, let's go back in time and start to map this out once again, because now we actually have the next sort of steps available in this one. Let me get rid of all of these other moving averages, which are not as important. Actually, we'll keep on the 377 for this analysis. Anyways, 377 getting our last, major, or I wouldn't say major, but big accumulation zone right here before this $4,000 run, now providing a nice rejection. So we're still living below that on a macro scale, which, again, is a very good way to kind of get the macro behavior. Also, more importantly, we do have the 2-day dildo death cross, which is continuing to get a little bit more divergence away from each other. Now, here's the thing. I actually do think that Bitcoin could still have another spike up to the upside, especially with the weekend coming tomorrow, as it is Friday right now. Happy Friday, by the way. Let me just make sure that I'm recording. I am recording, and the microphone's working. That's great. That's good. And more importantly, if we did, if we did end somewhere around like 6,800 or especially above 6,800 coming into the weekend, I actually do think that we're going to get another test back into at the very least the low 7,000s, like 7,300, maybe even all the way up to the 55 right here at about 7,800, 7,900-ish region. But I'd still kind of be looking for the same sort of thing. And more importantly, going back in the history of time, the annals of history right here, we do see a very nice setup. So with regards to this, anytime that we've seen the golden cross or the death cross for that matter, where price action is both above the 377 and using the 21 exponential average to kind of bounce off of, well, those are your very nice bullish moves back on over here. This is why we were bullish last year, in especially April, May, when everyone was trying to short 6,000. Not everyone, of course. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's not like we're the only fucking ones who are having the right assessment of that price action, I suppose. Jesus Christ, that sounds terrible to say. But more importantly, it formed out the bias is what I'm saying. So just because there's a bias to be had does not mean it's always going to work out that way. But as a trader, it airs the probabilities and statistics in our favors. And that's why I always outline those sorts of things. So, we can have a short-term time frame bias as upside, which we said yesterday. The short term was bullish, likely to break out, or at least test 6,800 and probably likely to break out and test that low 7,300-ish region. But the medium and higher time frames did not change. So that's why I really think it's important to delineate between all of those different time frames and formulate the bias boner for those time frames specifically, and kind of like mark off those areas and realize that nothing's really changed until, or at least really the bias isn't supposed to change until we actually get back above those, of which we're clearly getting rejected as it is right now. Now again, still got another 18 hours and 10 minutes and 5 seconds to go before this 2-day dildo is set in stone. So a lot can happen, but as it is, looks like a nice and clear rejection to me. Anyways, back in the time or the annals of history of Bitcoin, we do see the last 2-day dildo death cross right in over here happening in September 2018. We've been covering this quite a bit. Bitcoin then gets ground down below the yellow 21. The yellow 21 is kind of like the actionable point for that. So the 2-day dildo death cross sets in the bias from the higher term timeframes. Then once the 21 exponential moving average is kind of like lost, especially in the case of a death cross, that's when the inevitable dooms drop typically does happen, or not typically, but always does happen. It gets ground down below here. No opens and closes above it, which formulates that bias to the downside, and then boom, massive 52% move to the downside, and also marked off by the time that we break the 377 exponential moving average right here. I do consider this a retest of it. Doesn't need to be perfect, just needs to be alongside the region, and more importantly, its sell pressure was obviously still there. So as long as we are below the 21, I am more I'm more tangentially bearish. As long as we're below the 377, I'm more immediately bearish from this time frame perspective, which is a higher term time frame. We'll get into the lower term time frames a little bit later, but I want to start off with this once again because I just feel like it's very, 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 very important from a long term perspective. We have another golden cross example right in over here, similar to what we saw in early 2019. Very, very similar, and as long as everything's above the 377 with price action above it as well, very, very nice. Anyways, then the last death cross example that we had before that was back on over here in 2014, 2015. This one's actually a lot more similar to what we're doing right now, I think, as Bitcoin does get the death cross right here, but it's very far away from price action, kind of quite similar to what we're doing right now, as price action is about $1,000 away from that, a little bit more than $1,000 away. And as long as we're below the 21, pressure is down, but it's not. But we do get another wipeout and retest of the 55 right here, which is what I think can actually happen on Bitcoin price action still, especially over the weekend if Bitcoin closes within this region. I would be defensive against that, but I also would look at that as a major opportunity for a very nice position, as a lot of people over here probably triumphantly posting that they bought the lows and Bitcoin's never going lower, bro, because that RSI can't go lower, Anyways, sorry, obviously referencing like some analysis I've seen, which is very interesting. I honestly just want to talk with these people just to understand, like, where do they get this from? Just to know. Anyways, as long as below the 55, overall the bias is to the downside, but it's not really actionable till we lose these two moving averages right here. Once a 21 crosses to the downside of the 377, that is your next major massive dooms drop to the tune of about, 51.5%? That looks familiar now, doesn't it? Now, before that, we don't really have too many examples, unfortunately, because, Bitcoin's more or less a younger asset, but we are working on the third time right here, which 3 times does make a trend. And what do you know? 21 crossing below the 377. Death cross right here. Now, I do think that probably more immediately this does turn out to be bearish, and we will come back down below 6,000 overall over the next, month or two, or whatever it ends up being. I don't have a time analysis for that. I don't think that it can be done, but as long as we're operating underneath this setup, and especially below the 21, I'm bearish, and I'm bearish for the medium and longer term, which means that we can come all the way back down to our prior lows and probably beyond. More importantly, we've never seen Bitcoin have a major market cycle low without having bullish divergence on the daily. Do we see bullish divergence here on the daily on RSI? No, absolutely not. And for the people who say that it is, that's not divergence in any way, shape, or form. To put it to have a clear example, this isn't even a major market cycle low, but it is a major low before a $4,000 pump. This one has massive bullish divergence between this point and this point. Shit, you can even go, and then we can go back to this point right in over here. 3 drives, 1, 2, 3, boom, $3,000 move up. Bearish divergence on the highs right in over here at 14,000, and then our last market cycle low, we had 1, 2, 3 drives, 1, 2, and then a big, very, 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 very. This is actually 4. We got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So pretty damn obvious right there. Several examples in 2018 on all these failed rally attempts, and then going back to 2014, 2015, of course, bearish divergence on the lows, and we can go back even to 2013 right in over here as well. So several examples of that, which I do feel quite confident about, and that does make me think that Bitcoin has not seen the lows just yet. Yes, we can play out nice upwards moves, but we're looking at, medium and higher time frames right now. So realistically, the trajectory that we're looking at is weeks and months out, not on the day's events, which I think a lot of people think that like a 4 4-hour time frame is a high time frame. It is not. It's a low time frame. It's barely even at the precipice of a low time frame, by the way, in my opinion. And I think, and I just feel like I've said this so often. If you've been struggling with getting the trend or just direction on Bitcoin right, I strongly suggest deleting all time frames below a 4-hour. Doesn't mean that you can't do it, and there's several traders out there who make shit tons of money trading below 4-hour, but I don't think that it really needs to be done. And I do think that the best bang for buck is had between the 4-hour and 12-hour for Bitcoin. We have to realize that Bitcoin trades 24/7. So if you're used to trading like the 5-minute in traditional markets, that's kind of like a 30-minute in Bitcoin land. And if you're used to trading like an hourly in traditional markets, that's like trading a 4-hour in Bitcoin land. So I obviously come from traditional markets. I used to be market maker authorized trader on the floor of New York Stock Exchange ARCA, and what I'm used to there was trading like 5-minute charts. I used to make a living trading 5-minute charts. Like that was my bread and butter. I don't do that on Bitcoin because I just don't think it's a good use of time. Doesn't mean that it can't be done, but you see a lot of people getting really excited about the price action yesterday, when realistically that was a very nice and clear sell. Now that we have this setup going on, right? Jesus fucking Christ. They're doing construction outside. I might need to actually close the door. It's too warm in here, though. I'm gonna have to close the door. This is too fucking loud. God damn it! Cunts. All right. Okay, cool. So now we have the 200 simple on the 4-hour actually working its way down. I do think that it's going to start to come in line with the where's our blue box on the BitMEX chart? Yeah, there we go. With the blue box on the BitMEX chart, a little bit above 6,800. We could probably extend this a little bit just to be a little more conservative from 6,750 to 6,850, which would actually be getting it right now. So I would say that as long as we're operating below this level right here, especially on at the very least a 4-hour closing basis, I think that this is all just redistribution. Now, like I said, if Bitcoin ends within this region coming into the weekend, I do think that we can get another move up into the $7,000 region. But if we got that move to the upside in the over the weekend, I would look at that as a damn good indication that it's actually going to likely top on over again, as weekend price action is typically contrary to the week's direction. Well, actually, the week's direction has been to the upside here too. So perhaps I could be wrong on that. You know what? I take that statement back. I don't think that this is the right that this is the right time to employ that, but I do still feel strongly about these regions nonetheless. So Bitcoin does have another hunt to the upside over the weekend. I would be more or less, what's the word that I'm looking for? Skeptical of it. Anyways, as it stands right now, we're going to see momentum also start to turn back down on Bitcoin. Oh, is this trend line still working? Going all the way back from the 20th of March? I think it is. Funny how that shit works sometimes. 4-hour RSI. Are we getting any divergent signals here? I think probably are we. We closed on 68.17 right here. Where's our last high? 68.13.5. Technically, yeah, we have a little bit of bearish divergence there. I don't think it's a huge amount. I don't think it's a huge issue, but more importantly, it technically is present as it stands. We are making lower highs on RSI, correlating with higher highs on price action. So a loss of momentum is being had, especially right at resistance, which I do think is also going to be indicative of distribution. On top of that, let's go down to our lower term timeframes in this and just start to map out these areas a little bit more, see if there's any sort of agreement within this market. And yeah, we see the 3-hour doing about the same thing, which you should expect. 3-hour RSI is a lot more obvious with a lot more obvious with a rejection, and actually a lot less obvious, or it actually does not have bearish divergence present there, but I do think that's a little bit of a farce. Looking at the 2-hour, same thing. Very similar to our momentum also is coming down as well, and hourly should be in the same direction. Yes. So here's the thing. I do think that Bitcoin's going to spend a little bit of time going sideways here, but I wouldn't look for another big breakout or big breakdown, even if you're looking for like hunts or continuation or anything like that, until we at the very least get a 2-hour dildo closing below, let's call it below 67. Well, no, maybe let's use a 4-hour. The downside's a little bit more difficult because I do think that Bitcoin can linger here for a little bit of time. But if we do close below, let's call it like 6,700, I would look for a continuation all the way back down to this blue box right here in the 6,350 to 6,300 to 6,350-ish range. I do think that we'd probably very, very likely come back down and test that region, which is also going to be, I believe, the bottom side support of this rising channel bear flag, which is coming in, yes, right around 6,700. 6350. Okay, great. So I really like that area now that we can confirm that. And at current trajectory, yeah, it'd be about 6350 to actually 6400. So you know what we can do? We can actually flip this baby around, and it's actually going to be a little bit more accurately be spoken like this, from 6350 to 64 right there. So I do think that we'd likely come back down and test around this region and continue, you know, following this flag formation as it is. Now, by the same token, if we do break back above 6850, especially on a 4-hour total closure or close above wherever the 200 simple is and 200 exponential averages, I do believe we'd see another run at the very least to about 7250 to 7300 region right here. We'd like to get another wick up there, and that could change the medium and higher time frame bias if and only if, for myself, and this is, you know, this may or may not be relevant to you. I'm just sharing my thoughts here. But I would change my medium and higher time frame bias if we closed a 4-hour above this region. It probably doesn't do too much. At least a 12-hour, preferably a daily above 7,300. Then I would look for extension much higher, actually. And this is going to completely change around a lot of things, potentially leading up into the 2-day total closure all the way up to about 7,900. I would look for extension up there. Remember, that actually is where the 2-day total death cross is coming in, and that would be very similar to 2014, even though I'm not a fan of fractals, the good old fractal squirrels. I don't think that that's really relevant, but I would still look at that as a nice actionable point, because fractals with price action are different than fractals with indicators, because fractals with indicators are synthesizing down and what's the word that I'm looking for? Having something to standardize against, which does make a lot more sense from if you are going to have like a fractal perspective, and it wouldn't even be a fractal. It's just telling you what the bots and algos are doing in this market and what they're programmed to do right now, which has been very, very helpful. Anyways, so that's what I'd say, you know, both to the upside and the downside. I do think that overall Bitcoin likely does come down here over the medium and higher term timeframes, but short term could have another stab up there. Yeah, it could very easily. In fact, I mean, you know, you might even see just a nice quick wick up to 6,900 and test this region once again. But as long as we are living below there on a closing basis, it does not look like it just doesn't look good. Now here's the thing: we actually do have technically, potentially is this an ascending triangle being formulated right here? I don't know if I'd say that just yet. I did have the measured move for the ascending triangle in yesterday, and you know, is this an ascending triangle? Not really. You don't want to see your secondary low coming in like very, very close to your first low. You know, on it from a Fibonacci perspective, this is probably like around the 942, which is just very unlikely. You know, you don't get a chance like that if it actually truly is being accumulated, because that's what an ascending triangle is. It's just a reaccumulation formation. And right here, yeah, we're actually even below the 886 and above the 94 or right at the 942. So yeah, I think that's very unlikely, but it technically is a slightly higher low. The problem is that when we look at the yen or the Korean won, it's actually not. It's actually a lower low, which we'll look at a little bit later. Anyways, the short-term timeframes, I actually don't really have a bias here. My bias boner is weak. It's flaccid. My bias boner is strong on the medium and higher term timeframes. So I don't have an opinion on whether we get another spike to the upside or not. I don't have an opinion on whether we top on over right now. I think that if downside price action does happen, it probably happens, not today. Probably not today. But again, that's just my opinion. We can look at probability charts soon. But before we do that, I want to look at historical volatility percentile, of which the 4-hour is starting to really expand here. So we saw a contraction phase going all the way from the 13th of March in this nice orderly fashion. And now we're really maintaining this expansion phase as we remain above the moving average on this for the first time in a very long time, and sustain above there, more importantly. And that is saying that we are likely to expand in the direction of the momentum, which the momentum oscillators are starting to turn to the downside. So I would say that is more or less like that's more or less that is more or less my analysis on the shorter term timeframes. You know, I'm overall bearish. I do think that we could have another spike up to like 69-ish region on the short term timeframes. That wouldn't really do anything, but as long as we're closing below 68, the bias remains, I suppose, at least for the short term. For the higher term timeframes, the areas are very clear and delineated. Looking at the 12-hour, we do see 12-hour stocks actually up right now, but it is worth mentioning that we still have this trend line to deal with right here. So while it likely does give a try up into the bullish control zone somewhere around this trend line, which is actually coming in right at the critical zone, which is really good for symmetry, I would say that the longer that Bitcoin goes sideways here without breaking to the upside, the more and more bearish it does become. But To be fair, the 12-hour actually does not look bad. And if I'm just looking at the 12-hour, it's very likely to get another test. Very likely to get another test. And the 12-hour actually looks okay, funnily enough. So we do have potentially, or do we have, no, we don't have any divergence here. It actually looks okay. Moving average, the 10 simple and the 21 crossing to the upside right there. If I am going to switch around, or if I am going to be short-term bullish, it's based upon the 12-hour. In fact, this actually looks good right here. This is a fresh look on the charts for myself. I want my ideas to be as in the moment as possible when I do these videos, because I think I think it's relatable. And also that's like, I'm not trying to be the fucking authority. I'm not trying to be the end all be all. I mean, I make mistakes, and as we go along these things, I do see more and more things. So yeah, the 12-hour actually does look like we probably get another test of the upside. Okay, but anyways, with regards to all of that, let's actually go back down here to the 4-hour. Let's map out these critical zones and again, differentiate between the lower term timeframes, the medium timeframes, and the high and the macro timeframes. Then we'll go look at expected moves with regards to historical volatility percentile. So, Jesus Christ, there's a guy outside my window once again. Hey, motherfucker, stop making noise. It worked. It's good. Nice and quiet now. Okay, cool. So to the upside still, let's call it 6850 just to be a little bit more conservative, although 6800 would be just as relevant, I do think, but 6850 just a little more conservative, and that is going to be where this 200 simple is going to be aligning by the next tick, I do think. If we do break that to the upside, I would, and on a closure, by the way, I would look for extension all the way up here to 7250 to 7300-ish region again, and very likely test that region. I would also be very defensive against what we saw happen last night again, with a quick wick up and then end below, especially on volume as well. A little bit of an outlier there. That would be the short-term timeframe buys above 7,300 on a daily closure. That changes around the medium-term timeframe buys, and I would target a move actually all the way up to 7,800 to 7,900 region right here. That would test a 2-day death cross officially, although I think that that's a little bit less likely to happen right now, but fair enough. Have to talk about all those scenarios because that's what trading is. We're not fucking analysts trying to predict shit, because predictions are worthless unless you trade them. Anyways, by the same token, the downside is a little bit more difficult for the short term. It's like, do we break 6750 on a 4-hour total closure? Does it initiate a move down here? Does that even really make sense to 64, 6350-ish region? I suppose so, but more importantly, the 6350-ish region is important for the medium-term timeframes once again, because if we do break it, that's going to initiate the flag formation move, or at least the rising channel move, which is typically a bearish redistribution pattern. But it's going to, could also be a flag formation as well, which would have a much deeper, measured move. So for now, the channel measured move is actually all the way down here towards about 4,200. By the way, that would really fit in well with the daily bullish divergence analysis. Hello, what the fuck is going on over here? What's the word that I'm looking for? Jesus Christ, just completely lost my train of thought. As we looked at the beginning of this video, Bitcoin's never bottomed without bullish divergence on the daily on a macro cycle. So it would actually, by this point coming back down here, we very likely would be making bullish divergence on the daily. I mean, the RSI got so beat up on that March 11th, March 13th move right here that, it very likely would. Or I think extremely likely would. So that 6350-ish number, very, very important. Although I do believe that there would be bounces along the way to the downside. I don't think it's going to be a straight line. Bounce areas would be right around here. This little spike low at 62. This low right here at about 5950, 5900 we'll call it. Then 5500-ish region right here, which is going to be the 200 simple on the weekly. And then all the way down to 51. And then it should be free fall to new lows on a closing basis. And again, all those areas potentially could reverse it as well. We do want to remain flexible in our expectations, but that would be the general bias of what I'd be looking at, and we just kind of have to come back in real time and look at it from that perspective. So let's go over here to our expected moves chart. And let's just eyeball it at first. Hold on, it's getting like laggy for whatever reason. We do see that the top side of I'm guessing this is the first standard deviation. It might be the half standard deviation. If so, then that's going to be a much higher probability. But the probabilities are on the upside right here, actually, on the 12-hour, obviously, because we're a lot closer to breaking that area. But it is interesting to me to see that the second standard deviation right here is coming in right around where? Right around 7,300-ish region, which I do like. And the third standard deviation is actually coming in right around our top side blue box at about 7,800-ish region. So So with that said, let's go over and do the actual maths on this. And well, I guess we already have our downside plotted out here. Let's actually make it a little more accurate, adding $50 to it, which shouldn't change it all that much. It should be very low probability. So it's very unlikely that we actually do break below 63.50 today. About 5.25% on the next 12-hour close, and on the next daily close. Hey, Jesus, why is this so laggy right now? It's probably trying to do too many calculations. Bali and Pig have probably put too many fucking calculations in this, and it's like, hey, go fuck yourself. Can you stop? But I love it. Anyways, yeah. So on a daily closing basis, there is a legitimate chance. 26.5% is relatively high, I would say. So that's and that's by days end close. So yes, it is actually possible today. Here's the thing. Let's do a single side let's do 68.50. 68.50 on a daily. It should be astronomically high. Yeah, about 47.5%. So if the bulls are going to break to the upside, they very likely do it in the next day or two. We saw an attempt yesterday, was rejected. I do think that today is going to be another attempt. Even if you're bullish or bear, whether you're bullish or bearish, I do think the upside is going to get another attempt here. The question is, does it actually break fully and formally? And the probabilities of this are pretty damn good by day's close. About 47.5%. That would be 68.50 on a 12-hour. That would be even 43.5%, which is really, really good. Let's actually extend this a little bit more just to see the medium time frame area at 73. And let's see what the single side is for that on a 12-hour. That's going to be actually 4.75%. So on the next 12-hour dildo closure, which is like in, I don't know, 5 or so hours. Six. I think 6 hours actually right now. I'm doing this video very, very early. Very, very low probability actually that we do get above that area, but remember that's for the medium term time frame, so we should really be looking at it at the very least a daily, and that shows about a little bit lower than 26%. So it's within the realm of possibility. It's reasonable for both sides here, but the upside is more likely from a mathematical perspective. Although I do think it's going to test up there. I do think that it probably rejects from there. Let's see. Oh, we didn't even go over daily momentum oscillators here. Let's go over daily momentum oscillators. We do see daily Stokes technically down right now. But if I throw on my new my Bully infused indicator as well, which actually shows when these Stokes will be crossing with my settings, which I'm going to get like a million messages on, hey man, where can I find that indicator? You can't. It's not available for public use. Hey, study not authorized. It looks like it's not authorized for my use either. All right, well, fair enough, man. Bali's probably working on the code or some shit. All good though, all good. I would imagine that if we do close back above, especially $7,000 on the daily, we will cross these back up to the upside, and we'll get another drive up there. But for right now, technically down, but a week down, I would say. So there is a legitimate possibility that Bitcoin does get another upside continuation move here, and I do think that if it is going to happen, it happens today or tomorrow. Very likely if it is going to happen, but I'm not, like I said, my bias is not to the upside. I do think that it also very, very just as likely, even if we get another test of the upside, doesn't mean that it doesn't turn into rejection. And the same criteria applies: a wick up plus a closure below 68, especially 67.50, and downside likely to resume. Okay, all right. So we got all of that. It is already 32 minutes and 45 seconds into this video. How the fuck does that happen? Nobody knows. Let's go check out the other top shitcoins. See, Butyrol is still living below the 21 today. Death Cross running over here. It looks like a very obvious rising channel. Now it looks like it's going to get another chest the upside as well. If this one breaks out, Jesus Christ! I mean, if Bitcoin headed into like the upper 7,000, so I'd look for Butyrol at 165. But I do think that Bitcoin's going to set the tone here. Litecoin looking a lot more like a rejection, and momentum also is actually looking like they want to cross the upside as well. Historic volatility percentile relatively low here too, so we are going to be looking at a big move sooner rather than later, and and this also looks like it could very easily have a move to the upside. Let's look at CMEs. Okay, the weekly looks absolutely atrocious, to be fair. Let's look at CMEs. CME weekly is disgusting, nasty. Let's go to a daily. Daily says we probably come back down to 6650 at the very least and test there. But if we close above the 21, makes it difficult to be bearish immediately. But other than that, let's see, is there anything obvious here? Yeah, the 2-day dildo death cross is coming. It is about it's about one tick away from confirming, which will confirm on Monday, Monday's closure. But as is right now, we see the death cross coming. The 21 has so far rejected, but a lot of trading price action to go before that is fully and formally confirmed. But I do think that this one looks a little bit, a lot more on the bearish side, getting rejected from our last kind of accumulation zone right here. Now turning into, I'm basically just retesting form of support. Now turning resistance as major moving averages cross, as Bitcoin has a nice massive wick to the upside. Lower term time frames, like a 4 hour, looks a lot more like an obvious rejection and looks a lot more angled to the downside, back down to like 6,500-ish region. So fair enough. CME is the obviously more bearish case here. Do we have bearish evidence on the 4 hour? We do not. Actually, we do not. But we do have a head and shoulders on 4 hour RSI, and those have had a damn good degree of playing out, a lot more than what you see on price action, actually. At least what I found, and I'm sure, and I'm curious that, or I'd imagine a lot of other people probably think the same, but I'd be curious to hear. Let's go look at gold. What's gold doing? Gold's looking good for some upside here too. We got the move down to, okay, we actually got to move. I said 1585 to 1590. We'd probably test and then bounce off. Got a little bit further down than that to 1575, but hey, that's good enough. I do think that this is still more or less looking like the, if there's anything bullish in this market right now in the world markets, it's actually gold. Again, I'm not a fan of gold. I don't really care about gold, but I do think that this is the best looking chart. From a long-term perspective and even short-term perspective in the markets right now, or at least of like the major things that we typically follow. Japan gonna hours away from closing a very it's already closed. Terrible weekly close. But we did, I mean, it basically was flat today, slightly up even. DAX, not open for the day just yet, but any sort of a weekly close below, I mean, especially below like 97.50 is long-term bearish. What else we have? Euro dollar looks like shit, back down to 106 and beyond, I'd say. I think it's going to make new lows here, probably back down to our 2017 lows at like 104, 105 long term. SPY. Hey, what's SPY doing? SPY, I don't really have an opinion on the short term price action. Looks like it is going to give another try and fill the gap at 257, 256 and a half today. But any sort of a weekly close below, 256 is long-term bearish, and I do think that we'd come back down and test around 235 at the very least. And I have a very similar idea here as I do on Bitcoin. I don't believe that the lows are in. I think that this thing can bounce up and play out a prolonged bull trap very easily, especially if we close above the 200 simple today at 256, which is possible. It's very possible, actually. But I'd still look at that as an opportunity. This thing could bounce up all the way to like 290, and it's still long term not looking that great. I do, it's and same thing here. We haven't seen this thing bottom on a macro scale without bullish divergence on the weekly, as contrary to Bitcoin spot on the daily. Anyways, now we're 37 minutes into this bitch. Let's briefly look at Bitcoin dominance. I'm curious how this one's looking right now. Bitcoin dominance doing what? Yesterday I said that it's short-term bearish, medium and long-term bullish. I don't really have a short-term bias anymore. It's a very clear and obvious descending broadening wedge here, and I do think that it is going to break out. So medium and higher term time frame still bullishly biased on this one. I think alts are going to get skeeted on in the months to come. But short-term, I don't know if it's still bearish here. Let's go look at like a random highly altruistic and very technologically advanced altcoin. Mr. Cardano would be a great example for this one. And what do we see here? Kind of just, oh my God, wow. Probably does bounce up a little bit, but this is just a garbage as fuck chart. All right, Bitcoin back above 68. Gonna give a try here. Alrighty. Okay, let's see if he can do it. The little engine that could. Anyways, I think it's time to start to wrap up this video. And let's go back to the lower term timeframes, wrap this one up. Regardless of whether I'm bullish or bearish, I do think that Bitcoin's going to get another test up to, at the very least, 6,900-ish region. We might even be seeing that right now. But as long as we're closing 4-hour dildos below about 6,850, I do think that the short term is the short term is difficult here. I don't really have a strong opinion, really, but still kind of in a distributed fashion. If we do get a 4-hour dildo closure above 69, we'll call it, or even 6,850, I would look for extension back up to 7250 to 73. If we close above that area, that over the weekend, I'd look for extension all the way up here to like 78, 7900-ish region. Really like to see like a 12-hour or daily closure above there to really confirm that. By the same token, the downside's difficult. I suppose I didn't check this out before, but I suppose I'd scrap what I said earlier about 6750. I think more importantly, the spike low of yesterday at 6644 is the area to watch. If we do even just tick below that region, I'd look for extension back down here to like 64 even. But that doesn't really change around the medium or higher term timeframes. We'd still be following the low term timeframe trajectory, and we'd likely be bouncing at least again off this very much tested support trend line, this diagonal support trend line forming our flag formation or channel formation. Now, if we do break 6,400 on a 4-hour total closure, that's when I start to get excited from a medium time frame perspective. I'd look for a quick move down to like 59 and then a small bounce there, then continuation to the 200 on the weekly about 55. Then, each and every one of these areas is like a short-term time frame bounce area, and we'll have to kind of like look at it in the moment. But ultimately, technically speaking, a full-on measure move all the way down to like 4,200-ish region, we'll call it. So for right now, I'm cautiously short term, actually like kind of bullish again, because I do think that we're going to get another test up here, but I don't think that I'm not so sold on the fact that it's going to actually break out. But hey, it doesn't matter about my opinion. Probabilities are certainly on the upside right now. So if Bitcoin is going to give it a try, I think that it actually does do it today or tomorrow, and that would be really, really fun to watch, which we'll be doing later on Twitch. So I want to wish you well once again. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you in this one-sided conversation that we have every Eastern European morning. I'll be signing off now. I'll be back on Twitch in just a jiff after I eat some food, and looking forward to seeing you there if you decide to join on in. If not, well, I hope that you have the best possible Friday, because why the hell not? And speak soon. Take care.